in the sprawling plains of ancient China, long before the world would marvel at its Great Wall or its flourishing dynasties. The land was a tapestry of warring tribes and kingdoms. It was a time of chaos, a time when the Xia Dynasty, the first recorded dynasty in Chinese history, stood teetering on the brink of collapse. Corruption and tyranny seeped into every corner of the Xia court. Led by its cruel and despotic ruler, King Jie, the people suffered under heavy taxes, arbitrary punishments, and a ruler more consumed by his own indulgences than by the well-being of his kingdom. Yet, amidst this chaos, a spark of hope began to emerge, a hope that would one day ignite into a dynasty that would change the course of history. At the heart of this transformative tale stood two figures destined to carve their names into the annals of time: Cheng Tang, a virtuous and visionary leader, and his wife, the enigmatic Empress, a woman of unparalleled intellect and moral fortitude. While history remembers Tang as the founder of the Shang Dynasty, it is the unseen influence of his wife, the Empress, that truly shaped the course of their shared destiny. Her wisdom, compassion, and unyielding resolve would prove to be as instrumental as Tang's military and political acumen in the rise of the Shang Dynasty. Born into a noble lineage, the Empress was a woman of striking intelligence and grace. From a young age, she was taught not only the traditional arts befitting a noblewoman but also the intricacies of statecraft, diplomacy, and philosophy. Her father, a respected chieftain, saw in her a spark that surpassed even his sons. He ensured that she was well-versed in the teachings of ancient sages, understanding the principles of governance and the moral codes that would later define her life. Unlike many women of her time, she was not content to remain in the shadows. Instead, she embraced the power of knowledge and the influence it afforded her. When she married Cheng Tang, a rising leader known for his benevolence and strategic mind, their union became more than just a marriage. It became a partnership forged in the crucible of shared ideals. Tang's vision of a just and moral kingdom resonated deeply with the Empress, and she became his closest confidant, advisor, and, in many ways, his equal. Together, they dreamed of a land free from the tyranny of the Xia, a land where virtue and compassion would replace corruption and cruelty. The Xia dynasty's decline presented both an opportunity and a challenge for the couple. King Jie's excesses had alienated even his most loyal vassals, and whispers of rebellion echoed across the land. Yet, overthrowing a dynasty that had ruled for centuries was no simple task. It required not only strength of arms but also a unifying vision that could rally disparate tribes and leaders under a common cause. Here, the Empress' influence began to shine. While Tang worked to build alliances and prepare for the inevitable confrontation with the Xia forces, the Empress played a crucial role behind the scenes. She was a master of diplomacy, capable of navigating the complex web of tribal politics with grace and precision. It was said that her words could soothe the most volatile tempers and inspire even the most disheartened leaders. Through her efforts, tribes that had been at odds for generations found common ground, united by the promise of a brighter future under Tang's leadership. But the Empress' contributions were not limited to diplomacy. She was also a moral compass for Tang, reminding him of the principles that should guide his actions. In moments of doubt, when the weight of his ambitions threatened to cloud his judgment, it was the Empress who grounded him, urging him to stay true to their shared vision of justice and virtue. Her unwavering faith in Tang's abilities gave him the strength to face the challenges ahead, and her insight often provided solutions to problems that seemed insurmountable. As the Xia court descended further into decadence, the people's suffering grew more acute. Stories of King Jie's cruelty spread like wildfire, of his extravagant feasts while famine gripped the countryside, of his ruthless punishments for those who dared to speak against him. The contrast between the Xia court's opulence and the stark reality of the common people's lives could not have been starker. Tang and the Empress knew that the time for action was drawing near. One fateful night, as the couple walked through their encampment, they paused to observe the flickering lights of the soldiers' campfires. Tang spoke of the immense burden he felt, the lives that would be lost in the battles to come, and the uncertainty of their success. The Empress listened quietly, her gaze steady and unwavering. When he finished, she placed a hand on his shoulder and spoke words that would echo in Tang's mind for years to come. Victory is not measured by the battles we win, but by the legacy we leave behind. If we fight for virtue, for justice, and for the people, then no sacrifice will be in vain. This is our duty, and we must see it through. These words became a guiding principle for Tang as he led his forces into battle against the Shang Dynasty. The Empress, though she remained away from the front lines, continued to play a pivotal role. She ensured that the soldiers were cared for, their families supported, and their spirits bolstered through rituals and ceremonies that invoked the favor of the heavens. Her compassion and strength became a source of inspiration for the entire Shang army, a reminder of what they were fighting for. The rebellion against the Xia was not without its challenges. The Xia forces, though weakened by corruption, were still formidable, and the path to victory was fraught with peril. Yet, through Tang's strategic brilliance and the Empress' unwavering support, the Shang forces began to turn the tide. The final confrontation with King Jie's army would become the stuff of legend, a battle that symbolized the triumph of virtue over tyranny. As the dust settled and the Xia dynasty fell, Tang was crowned the first king of the Shang dynasty. Yet, even in victory, the Empress reminded him of the responsibilities that came with their newfound power. "The mandate of heaven is not a gift," she told him. "It is a trust, one that we must honor through our actions every day." Together, Tang and the Empress set about building a dynasty that would endure for centuries. Their story was one of partnership, of shared ideals and sacrifices, and of a vision for a better future. While history may remember Cheng Tang as the founder of the Shang dynasty, those who knew the truth understood that his success was inextricably linked to the wisdom and strength of the woman who stood by his side. Thus began the era of the Shang dynasty, a time of renewal and hope, born from the ashes of the Xia and guided by the light of virtue. It was an era shaped not only by the decisions of a king but also by the quiet yet profound influence of a queen whose legacy would echo through the ages. The early life of Cheng Tang, the man who would one day be known as the founder of the Shang dynasty, was marked by both privilege and struggle. Born into a noble lineage, he grew up in the shadow of the waning Xia dynasty, a kingdom plagued by corruption and tyranny. From a young age, Tang exhibited a natural charisma and a deep sense of justice, traits that would later define his leadership. Yet, even the most visionary leader needs a partner to guide and support them, and Tang found this in his wife, a woman of unparalleled intellect and grace. The woman who would become the Empress of Cheng Tang was born into a family of scholars and statesmen. Her father, a respected chieftain in the northern regions, was known for his integrity and wisdom. Unlike many families of the time, her family believed in the power of education, and she was raised alongside her brothers, receiving the same rigorous training in philosophy, governance, and diplomacy. By the time she reached adulthood, she had earned a reputation as a woman of remarkable intelligence and insight, qualities that made her stand out in a society that often overlooked the contributions of women. Their meeting was not one of political arrangement but of mutual respect. Tang, who was already a rising leader among the tribes, visited her father's court to discuss alliances against the oppressive Xia regime. It was there, during a gathering of tribal leaders, that Tang first encountered the young woman who would change the course of his life. She spoke not with the frivolity often expected of women in such settings, but with the confidence and authority of someone who understood the intricacies of leadership. Tang was captivated not by her beauty, though she was undoubtedly striking, but by her intellect and her unwavering sense of purpose. She challenged him in ways no one else had, questioning his strategies and offering insights that were both innovative and pragmatic. By the end of their first meeting, Tang was convinced that she was not just a potential ally but an equal partner in the vision he had for a just and virtuous kingdom. Their courtship was brief but intense, marked by conversations that delved into philosophy, governance, and the moral responsibilities of leadership. Tang saw in her a reflection of his own ideals, and she saw in him the potential to transform their fragmented land into a unified and virtuous kingdom. When they married, it was a union not just of two individuals but of two visions, each complementing the other in ways that would prove vital to their shared destiny. As Tang began to consolidate power and rally support for his rebellion against the Xia dynasty, the Empress took on a pivotal role behind the scenes. She was not content to simply observe from the sidelines. Instead, she became an active participant in shaping their strategy. Her diplomatic skills were unparalleled, and she worked tirelessly to mediate disputes among the various tribes that had joined their cause. Where Tang's charisma brought people to the table, her wisdom ensured that they stayed there, united by a common purpose. One of the most significant challenges they faced during this time was the deep mistrust that existed among the tribes. Generations of conflict had created rivalries that ran deep, and it was not uncommon for old grievances to resurface during their meetings. The Empress, however, had a remarkable ability to navigate these tensions. She would listen carefully to each side, acknowledging their concerns and finding compromises that satisfied both parties. Her presence alone was often enough to defuse a heated argument, as her reputation for fairness and integrity preceded her. It was during this period that the Empress demonstrated her most profound contribution to the Shang cause, her ability to inspire trust. In a time of uncertainty, when alliances were fragile and the threat of betrayal loomed large, her unwavering commitment to justice and virtue became a beacon of hope for those who followed Tang. She became a symbol of the moral foundation upon which their rebellion was built, a reminder that their fight was not just against the tyranny of King Jie but for the creation of a better and more just society. Her influence extended beyond the political realm. She was deeply involved in the daily lives of their followers, taking the time to speak with soldiers, farmers, and artisans alike. She listened to their concerns, offered words of encouragement, and ensured that their needs were met to the best of her ability. This personal touch endeared her to the people and created a sense of unity and shared purpose that was essential to their cause. As their movement gained momentum, Tang often sought the Empress' counsel on matters both great and small. He trusted her judgment implicitly, knowing that her insights were grounded not just in intellect but in a profound understanding of human nature. It was she who advised him on the importance of mercy, reminding him that the true measure of a leader was not in the battles they won but in the lives they improved. This philosophy became a cornerstone of Tang's leadership and a defining characteristic of the Shang Dynasty. Yet, the path to revolution was fraught with challenges. The Xia Dynasty, though weakened by corruption, was still a formidable opponent, and their forces were vast and well-equipped. The Empress understood the gravity of their situation and worked tirelessly to ensure that their cause remained strong. She organized supply lines, oversaw the distribution of resources, and even implemented training programs for the soldiers, ensuring that they were well prepared for the battles ahead. One of her most remarkable achievements during this time was the creation of a network of informants and messengers who kept the Shang forces informed of the Xia army's movements. This network, which relied on the trust and loyalty she had cultivated among the people, proved invaluable in giving Tang and his generals the strategic advantage they needed. It was said that the Empress could anticipate the Xia's moves before they even made them, a testament to her foresight and understanding of warfare. Through it all, the bond between Tang and the Empress grew stronger. They were partners in every sense of the word, their love and mutual respect serving as a source of strength for both of them. In the quiet moments between battles and council meetings, they would speak of their dreams for the future, a future where their children and their people could live in peace and prosperity. Their union was not without its challenges. The pressures of leadership and the constant threat of betrayal tested their resolve on more than one occasion. Yet, they faced these trials together, their shared vision and unshakable faith in each other guiding them through even the darkest times. It was this partnership, forged in the crucible of struggle and sacrifice, that would ultimately lay the foundation for the Shang Dynasty. As the Xia dynasty's grip on power began to falter, Tang and the Empress prepared for the final confrontation that would determine the fate of their land. The Empress, though she would not stand on the battlefield, played an equally crucial role in this pivotal moment. Her guidance, her diplomacy, and her unwavering belief in their cause had brought them to this point, and her influence would continue to shape the course of history long after the battle was won. The decline of the Xia dynasty was a long and painful descent, marked by the unchecked tyranny of King Jie, whose reign epitomized cruelty and excess. Under his rule, the kingdom sank into chaos. Taxes rose to unbearable levels, forcing families to sell their land, their livestock, and even their children to survive. Crops withered in neglected fields, as the king's advisors prioritized their own wealth over the needs of the people. The Xia court became a den of decadence, where intrigue and betrayal flourished, and loyalty was bought rather than earned. The land cried out for change, and in this atmosphere of despair, Cheng Tang and the Empress rose to meet destiny. The Empress was among the first to recognize the potential for a rebellion. While Tang was a man of action, she was a woman of foresight. From the early days of their marriage, she had studied the cracks in the Xia dynasty's foundation. She noted the discontent brewing among the vassal states, the growing divide between Jie and his people, and the reluctance of even his closest allies to defend his increasingly erratic rule. "A tree rots from within," she told Tang one evening as they discussed their plans. "King Jie has sown the seeds of his own downfall. We must be ready to harvest the fruits of his folly." It was the Empress who urged Tang to begin forming alliances with the discontented vassal states that had grown weary of King Jie's oppression. Many of these rulers were reluctant to commit to open rebellion, fearing Jie's retribution. The Empress understood their hesitation and devised a strategy to win their trust. She personally traveled with Tang to meet these leaders, bringing gifts of silk, grain, and livestock to demonstrate their sincerity. But more than material offerings, she brought a vision, one of a kingdom ruled not by fear but by virtue. In one particularly tense meeting, the ruler of a neighboring state, who had long suffered under Jie's rule, voiced his skepticism. "Your words are noble, but words cannot topple a dynasty," he said, casting a wary eye at Tang and the Empress. "How can I know that you will succeed where so many others have failed?" The Empress stepped forward, her calm yet commanding presence silencing the murmurs in the hall. "We do not ask for your blind faith," she said, her voice steady. "We ask only for your courage. The Xia dynasty is a dying beast, thrashing in its final days. Together, we have the strength to end its suffering and build a future where our children will not live in fear. The question is not whether we can succeed, it is whether we have the will to try." Her words struck a chord, and one by one, the vassal states began to pledge their support. These alliances were fragile at first, bound by little more than mutual desperation. The Empress knew that trust would take time to build, and she worked tirelessly to strengthen these bonds. She organized councils where the leaders could voice their grievances and resolve their disputes, often mediating personally to ensure fairness. She hosted feasts and ceremonies to foster a sense of unity among the diverse tribes and states. Through her efforts, the seeds of rebellion began to take root. As alliances solidified, Tang and the Empress turned their attention to the Xia court itself. They knew that Jie's downfall would require more than military might. It would require dismantling the very foundation of his power. The Empress orchestrated a network of informants within the Xia capital, recruiting disillusioned officials, merchants, and servants who had grown weary of Jie's tyranny. These informants provided invaluable intelligence about the court's inner workings, from military deployments to the king's personal habits. Armed with this knowledge, Tang and the Empress began to lay the groundwork for their rebellion. The Empress' influence was not limited to strategy and diplomacy. She understood the importance of morale and symbolism in rallying the people to their cause. She commissioned artisans to create banners and emblems representing their vision of a virtuous kingdom, emblazoned with symbols of harmony and justice. These banners were distributed among their allies, becoming a unifying symbol for the rebellion. She also composed speeches and proclamations, which Tang delivered to their growing army, inspiring them with promises of freedom and prosperity. Meanwhile, King Jie remained oblivious to the storm gathering on his borders. Surrounded by sycophants and isolated from the suffering of his people, he dismissed reports of unrest as the grumblings of malcontents. He continued to indulge in lavish feasts and extravagant projects, including the construction of a massive palace that drained the kingdom's coffers. His arrogance blinded him to the reality that his kingdom was crumbling around him. The first major clash between Tang's forces and the Xia army occurred near the borders of the Shang territory. It was a decisive moment, one that would determine whether their rebellion had a chance of success. Tang led the charge, his tactical brilliance and charismatic leadership rallying his troops to victory. But behind the scenes, it was the Empress who ensured their success. She had personally overseen the logistical preparations for the battle, ensuring that the soldiers were well-fed, well-equipped, and ready to fight. She had also arranged for reinforcements to arrive at a critical moment, turning the tide in their favor. The victory was a turning point. News of Tang's triumph spread like wildfire, inspiring other discontented regions to rise up against Jie's rule. The Xia dynasty's once formidable army began to fracture as soldiers deserted to join Tang's forces or simply abandoned their posts. The Empress seized the opportunity to strengthen their position, sending envoys to the newly rebellious states with offers of alliance and support. Her efforts paid off, and the rebellion grew into a full-scale revolution. As the Shang forces advanced toward the Xia capital, the Empress worked tirelessly to maintain the unity of their coalition. She knew that victory would bring its own challenges, as rivalries and ambitions threatened to tear their alliance apart. She called a council of their allies, urging them to set aside their differences and focus on the greater good. "The fall of King Jie is only the beginning," she told them. "Our true test lies in what we build after. Let us ensure that our children inherit a kingdom worthy of their dreams." The final confrontation with King Jie's forces was both brutal and decisive. Tang led his troops with unparalleled courage and strategy, while the Empress coordinated the efforts of their allies and ensured that supplies flowed smoothly to the front lines. The battle ended in victory, and King Jie fled the capital, abandoning his throne. He was eventually captured and exiled, marking the end of the Xia dynasty and the beginning of a new era. As Tang stood before the assembled leaders and soldiers, preparing to be crowned the first king of the Shang dynasty, he turned to the Empress, who had stood by his side through every trial and triumph. "This victory is not mine alone," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "It belongs to all of us, and most of all, to the woman whose wisdom and strength have guided us here. Without her, none of this would have been possible." The Empress smiled, her eyes reflecting both pride and humility. "The work is not done," she replied. "This is only the beginning. Together, we must build a kingdom that honors the sacrifices of all who have fought and suffered for this moment." And so, with the fall of the Xia dynasty, the stage was set for the rise of the Shang, a dynasty born from the courage of a visionary king and the wisdom of a remarkable queen. The fall of the Xia dynasty marked the beginning of a new era, but the foundations of the Shang dynasty were far from stable. The rebellion had united a patchwork of tribes, clans, and states under a single banner, but their loyalties were tenuous. Each alliance was forged on promises and shared grievances, not enduring trust. Tang and the Empress knew that victory in battle was only the first step. The real challenge lay in forging these disparate groups into a cohesive and lasting kingdom. While Tang focused on consolidating military power and stabilizing the capital, the Empress took on the monumental task of diplomacy. She understood that the unity forged during their rebellion could easily unravel in the absence of a common enemy. With King Jie defeated, old rivalries and ambitions threatened to resurface, and the Empress was determined to prevent the new Shang Dynasty from fracturing before it could even take root. Her first move was to convene a grand council of leaders from across the newly unified territory. Held in the heart of the Shang capital, this gathering brought together chieftains, governors, and influential figures who had supported their cause. The atmosphere was tense. Many of these leaders had fought against one another in the past, and the wounds of old conflicts still lingered. Some viewed the Shang Dynasty as a temporary arrangement, a stepping stone to their own ambitions of power. The Empress, however, saw the council as an opportunity to lay the groundwork for a kingdom built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Dressed in robes that symbolized unity and harmony, the Empress addressed the assembly with the poise and authority that had become her hallmark. "We have stood together against tyranny and emerged victorious," she began, her voice steady and clear. "But the work of building a just and virtuous kingdom is far from over. The strength of our rebellion lay in our unity. Let us not squander that strength now. Let us build a future where all our people, no matter their tribe or lineage, can prosper together." Her words resonated deeply, but they were not enough to quell the underlying tensions. Over the following weeks, the Empress worked tirelessly to mediate disputes and foster trust among the leaders. She held private meetings to address grievances, listened to the concerns of each faction, and proposed compromises that satisfied all parties without undermining the broader vision of the Shang Dynasty. Her ability to navigate these complex dynamics earned her the respect and admiration of even the most skeptical leaders. One of the most significant challenges she faced was the rivalry between two of their most powerful allies, the chieftains of the Northern Plains and the Eastern Hills. Both had played pivotal roles in the rebellion, and both believed they were entitled to a prominent position in the new government. Their mutual distrust threatened to escalate into open conflict, and the Empress knew that such a rift could destabilize the entire kingdom. To address this, she organized a series of feasts and ceremonies designed to foster camaraderie between the two factions. At one such event, she orchestrated a symbolic gesture. The chieftains exchanged gifts that represented their respective strengths. The Northern Plains leader offered a fine warhorse, while the Eastern Hills chieftain presented a ceremonial sword. The Empress then spoke of the importance of balancing strength and wisdom, likening the gifts to the qualities needed to govern effectively. The gesture, though symbolic, marked the beginning of a fragile but growing sense of mutual respect between the two leaders. The Empress also understood the importance of including the common people in this process of unification. She traveled extensively throughout the newly unified territories, listening to the concerns of farmers, artisans, and laborers. She worked to address their grievances, advocating for fair distribution of resources and the establishment of policies that would benefit the entire kingdom, not just its elites. Her efforts to improve the lives of ordinary citizens earned her widespread admiration and helped to solidify the legitimacy of the Shang Dynasty. One of her most notable initiatives was the establishment of the Fields of Harmony, a program that redistributed and used land to peasants and encouraged cooperation among different communities. This not only alleviated famine and poverty, but also fostered a sense of shared purpose among the people. The program became a cornerstone of the Shang Dynasty's governance, and its success was attributed to the Empress' vision and compassion. Meanwhile, the Empress continued to serve as Tang's closest advisor. She encouraged him to adopt policies that promoted inclusivity and fairness, reminding him that the stability of their kingdom depended on the loyalty of its people. "A kingdom built on fear will crumble at the first sign of weakness," she told him during one of their late-night discussions. "But a kingdom built on trust and virtue will endure, even in the face of adversity." Under her guidance, Tang implemented a series of reforms aimed at consolidating power while preserving the autonomy of local leaders. He established a council of advisors, which included representatives from various regions, to ensure that all voices were heard. This approach helped to placate the more ambitious chieftains while reinforcing the idea of a united kingdom. Despite these successes, the road to unification was not without its challenges. There were those who resisted the changes, viewing the Shang Dynasty as an imposition on their autonomy. Small-scale uprisings and acts of defiance tested the resolve of the new government. The empress responded with a combination of firmness and compassion, offering amnesty to those who pledged their loyalty while taking decisive action against those who refused. Her balanced approach earned her both respect and fear, solidifying her reputation as a leader who was both just and formidable. As the years passed, the Shang Dynasty began to take shape, its foundations strengthened by the efforts of Tang and the Empress. The alliances forged during this time became the bedrock of the kingdom, ensuring its stability and growth. The Empress' vision of unity and cooperation transformed a fragile coalition into a thriving dynasty, and her influence continued to shape the course of history. Her work was far from over, but as she stood on the steps of the newly constructed Shang Palace, overlooking the bustling capital, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The journey had been arduous, and the challenges ahead would undoubtedly be great. Yet, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had played a crucial role in turning a dream into reality. The Shang Dynasty was no longer just an idea. It was a living, breathing kingdom built on the foundations of trust, virtue, and unity, and at its heart stood the Empress, a woman whose wisdom and strength had transformed the course of history. The Shang Dynasty's rise was far from guaranteed. Although Cheng Tang and the Empress had managed to consolidate power and foster alliances, the shadow of the Xia dynasty lingered. Loyalists to King Jie, scattered across the land, continued to sow discord and incite rebellion. Beyond this, the newly formed Shang kingdom faced the daunting task of proving its legitimacy. In ancient China, the concept of the mandate of heaven was central to the people's understanding of governance. A ruler's authority was derived from the favor of the heavens, and failure to uphold virtue and justice was seen as grounds for the loss of this divine mandate. For Tang and the Empress, the struggle to secure this mandate was not just a political endeavor but a spiritual one. The Xia loyalists, though diminished in strength, posed a significant threat. Bands of their forces raided Shang villages, disrupting trade routes and spreading fear among the populace. These skirmishes were not merely acts of defiance but calculated attempts to undermine the legitimacy of the Shang dynasty. Tang, ever the strategist, led military campaigns to quell these uprisings. But he understood that military might alone would not secure the loyalty of the people. For this, he relied on the Empress, whose wisdom and compassion became the cornerstone of their efforts to unify the kingdom. The Empress saw the mandate of heaven not merely as a divine endorsement but as a reflection of the ruler's ability to govern with virtue. Heaven's favor is not given lightly, she reminded Tang. It must be earned through the trust and prosperity of the people. With this belief as her guiding principle, she launched a series of initiatives aimed at healing the wounds of war and restoring faith in their leadership. One of her first acts was to address the grievances of those who had suffered under the Xia dynasty's tyranny. She personally oversaw the redistribution of wealth and resources, ensuring that the poorest families received aid. Grain from the royal stores was distributed to famine-stricken regions, and tax relief was granted to communities struggling to recover from the devastation of war. These acts of generosity not only alleviated suffering but also demonstrated the Shang dynasty's commitment to the well-being of its people. At the same time, the Empress sought to bridge the divide between the Shang and the former subjects of the Xia. She recognized that many of these people had been forced to serve King Jie out of fear rather than loyalty, and she extended a hand of reconciliation to them. She organized ceremonies of forgiveness, where former Xia officials and soldiers were invited to pledge their loyalty to the Shang in exchange for amnesty. These ceremonies were deeply symbolic, emphasizing unity and the rejection of tyranny. The Empress presided over them with grace, her presence a reminder of the virtues that the Shang dynasty sought to embody. Meanwhile, Tang and his generals prepared for what they knew would be the ultimate test of their reign: the final confrontation with the remnants of the Xia loyalists. Intelligence reports indicated that a coalition of Jie's former allies had regrouped in the south, amassing an army with the intent of overthrowing the Shang. The Empress, ever perceptive, understood that this battle would not only determine the survival of their dynasty but also solidify their claim to the mandate of heaven. The preparations for war were exhaustive. The Empress played an integral role, overseeing the logistical aspects of the campaign. She ensured that the soldiers were well-fed, well-armed, and motivated. She also took steps to minimize the suffering of the civilian population, establishing safe zones for those displaced by the conflict. Her compassion earned her the admiration of both the army and the people, and many came to see her as the embodiment of the mandate of heaven. As the Shang forces marched south, the Empress remained in the capital, where she worked tirelessly to maintain order and morale. She organized prayer ceremonies in the ancestral temples, invoking the blessings of the heavens for Tang's victory. These ceremonies, attended by nobles and commoners alike, served as a powerful reminder of the divine purpose of their struggle. The Empress' presence at these gatherings was both a source of comfort and inspiration, her unwavering faith bolstering the resolve of those left behind. The climactic battle took place on the plains of Mai, a site that would later become synonymous with the triumph of virtue over tyranny. Tang led the Shang army with his characteristic brilliance, employing strategies that exploited the weaknesses of the Xia loyalists. But victory was not assured. The enemy was well prepared, and the fighting was fierce. For hours, the outcome hung in the balance, with neither side gaining a decisive advantage. Back in the capital, the Empress awaited news of the battle with a mixture of hope and trepidation. She spent the day in the temple, surrounded by the people, leading prayers and offering words of encouragement. "The heavens favor the just," she told them. "Have faith in the virtue of our cause, and we shall prevail." Her calm demeanor and resolute belief in their ultimate victory kept the people's spirits high, even as uncertainty loomed. The turning point in the battle came when a contingent of Xia soldiers defected to the Shang. Swayed by the reputation of Tang and the Empress for fairness and integrity, this act of defection tipped the scales, allowing the Shang forces to rout the enemy and claim a decisive victory. The remnants of the Xia loyalists scattered, and their leaders were captured or killed. The Battle of Mai was over, and with it, the final vestiges of the Xia dynasty's power were extinguished. When the news of Tang's victory reached the capital, the city erupted in celebration. Bells rang out from the temples, and the streets were filled with jubilant crowds. The Empress, though relieved, remained composed. She knew that their victory was not just a military triumph but a confirmation of their mandate to rule. She organized a grand ceremony to honor the soldiers who had fought and the ancestors who had guided them. Tang returned to the capital as a hero, but he made it clear that their success belonged to all who had supported their cause. In the days that followed, Tang and the Empress worked together to solidify their hold on the mandate of heaven. They continued their efforts to heal the wounds of war and build a kingdom based on the principles of virtue and justice. The Battle of Mai became a defining moment in their reign, a symbol of the triumph of righteousness over oppression. The Empress' role in this victory was undeniable, though she had not stood on the battlefield. Her wisdom, compassion, and unwavering faith had been instrumental in securing their success. She had proven that the mandate of heaven was not a gift but a responsibility, one that required constant vigilance and dedication. Her influence would continue to shape the Shang dynasty for years to come, ensuring that it remained a beacon of hope and virtue in a turbulent world. The victory at Mai solidified the Shang dynasty's rule and affirmed its claim to the mandate of heaven. However, the true test of a dynasty's greatness is not its victories in war but its ability to govern wisely and justly in times of peace. Cheng Tang, now firmly established as the first king of the Shang dynasty, understood this, and alongside him, the empress embarked on a mission to lay the foundations of a kingdom that would endure for generations. Their vision for the Shang Dynasty was ambitious. Tang envisioned a kingdom rooted in justice and moral leadership, one where rulers served the people rather than exploiting them. The empress, whose wisdom had been a guiding force throughout their struggle, worked tirelessly to translate this vision into reality. Together, they initiated reforms that would transform the fractured land they had inherited into a unified and prosperous kingdom. The empress' first priority was to establish a system of governance that balanced central authority with regional autonomy. She understood that while the Shang court needed to assert control, it was equally important to respect the traditions and cultures of the diverse regions that now comprised their kingdom. To this end, she proposed the creation of a council of regional leaders, each granted a degree of autonomy in managing their own affairs. This council, which convened regularly in the capital, ensured that all regions had a voice in the kingdom's administration. At the heart of the Shang dynasty's governance was the principle of virtue. The empress believed that a ruler's legitimacy came not from force but from their ability to lead by example. She worked closely with Tang to draft a code of ethics for the court, emphasizing honesty, fairness, and compassion. This code became a cornerstone of the Shang dynasty's identity, setting a standard for governance that distinguished it from the corruption and tyranny of the Xia. The empress also recognized the importance of education in cultivating a virtuous society. She established schools and academies throughout the kingdom, where young nobles and commoners alike could study philosophy, governance, and the teachings of ancient sages. These institutions became centers of learning and innovation, fostering a new generation of leaders who shared the values of the Shang dynasty. The empress herself often visited these schools, engaging with students and inspiring them with her vision of a just and prosperous kingdom. One of her most enduring contributions was the establishment of a system of justice that prioritized rehabilitation over punishment. Under her guidance, the Shang court implemented laws that were fair and transparent, with punishments proportionate to the offenses committed. The empress personally oversaw the training of judges, ensuring that they were not only knowledgeable but also compassionate. Her approach to justice earned her the respect and admiration of the people, who saw her as a protector of the oppressed. The economic foundation of the Shang dynasty was another area where the empress left an indelible mark. She introduced policies to promote agriculture, the backbone of the kingdom's economy. Recognizing the importance of irrigation, she oversaw the construction of canals and reservoirs, which not only increased agricultural productivity but also mitigated the impact of droughts and floods. Her efforts to support farmers, including the distribution of seeds and tools, helped to stabilize the kingdom's food supply and reduce poverty. Trade and commerce also flourished under her guidance. The empress encouraged the development of marketplaces and trade routes, fostering economic exchange between regions. She understood that a prosperous economy was essential to the kingdom's stability and worked tirelessly to ensure that resources were distributed equitably. Her policies created opportunities for merchants and artisans, contributing to the kingdom's cultural and economic growth. While the empress focused on governance and economic development, Tang worked to strengthen the kingdom's military and maintain its external security. Together, they formed a formidable partnership, their complementary strengths ensuring that the Shang dynasty thrived. The empress' influence extended to every corner of the kingdom, her vision shaping policies that touched the lives of nobles and commoners alike. Despite her many responsibilities, the empress never lost sight of the people who had supported their rise to power. She frequently traveled throughout the kingdom, meeting with farmers, laborers, and artisans. She listened to their concerns, addressed their grievances, and ensured that their voices were heard. Her compassion and accessibility endeared her to the people, who came to see her as a symbol of the dynasty's commitment to justice and virtue. One of the most significant challenges the empress faced during this time was the lingering resentment among former Xia loyalists. While many had pledged their loyalty to the Shang, there were still pockets of resistance that threatened the kingdom's stability. The empress addressed this not with force but with reconciliation. She organized festivals and ceremonies that celebrated the unity of the kingdom, inviting former Xia officials and soldiers to participate. These events fostered a sense of belonging and helped to heal the divisions that had plagued the land for generations. The empress' efforts to unify the kingdom extended to its cultural identity. She commissioned poets, musicians, and artists to create works that celebrated the virtues of the Shang Dynasty and its vision for the future. These cultural initiatives not only strengthened the kingdom's sense of identity, but also inspired pride and loyalty among its people. The empress herself was a patron of the arts, her support helping to usher in a period of cultural flourishing that would come to define the early Shang era. Through her tireless work, the empress laid the foundations of a dynasty that was not only powerful but also just and compassionate. Her influence was felt in every aspect of the kingdom's administration, from its laws and policies to its culture and economy. She had transformed a fragmented land into a unified and prosperous kingdom, earning the love and admiration of her people. As the Shang Dynasty entered a period of stability and growth, the empress reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. The road had been long and arduous, filled with challenges and sacrifices, yet she found solace in the knowledge that their efforts had created a legacy that would endure for generations. The foundations she had built were strong, and the vision she shared with Tang continued to guide their kingdom. The empress knew that their work was far from over. The challenges of governance were constant, and the responsibility of maintaining the mandate of heaven required vigilance and dedication. But she faced the future with confidence, secure in the knowledge that the Shang Dynasty was built on a foundation of virtue and justice, a foundation that she had worked tirelessly to create. With the Shang Dynasty now firmly established, the empress shifted her focus to strengthening the bond between the throne and the people. She had always believed that a kingdom's true strength lay not in its armies or wealth, but in the loyalty and well-being of its citizens. Guided by this conviction, she devoted herself to initiatives that directly addressed the needs of the common people, ensuring that the Shang Dynasty was not merely a ruling class but a unifying force for all. The empress began by listening to the voices of the people, an act that was revolutionary for its time. She regularly held open forums in the capital, where farmers, merchants, artisans, and laborers could present their concerns. These gatherings, known as the Assemblies of Virtue, became a cornerstone of her governance. People traveled from distant provinces to speak before the empress, their stories weaving a tapestry of the kingdom's struggles and hopes. The empress treated each petitioner with dignity, and her responses often included direct action to address their grievances. During one such assembly, a delegation of farmers from the southern provinces presented their plight. Their lands had suffered from years of drought, leaving them unable to feed their families or pay their taxes. Moved by their plight, the empress immediately ordered the release of grain from the royal granaries to sustain the affected regions. She also dispatched engineers to assess and improve the irrigation systems, a project that not only restored the region's productivity but also strengthened the people's trust in the Shang Dynasty. Recognizing the importance of agriculture as the backbone of the kingdom, the empress launched a comprehensive agricultural reform known as the Fields of Harmony Initiative. This program redistributed unused or neglected lands to families in need, providing them with seeds, tools, and training to cultivate their plots effectively. The initiative also introduced crop rotation and irrigation techniques, ensuring sustainable farming practices. Under her guidance, the kingdom saw a remarkable increase in agricultural output, alleviating famine and securing the food supply for years to come. The empress' compassion extended beyond material needs. She understood that the people also needed hope and inspiration, especially in the wake of the wars that had ravaged the land. She commissioned artisans to create public works of art, murals, statues, and monuments that celebrated the virtues of unity, resilience, and justice. These works, displayed in town squares and temples, served as a constant reminder of the shared values that bound the kingdom together. Her cultural initiatives also included the promotion of music, poetry, and storytelling, which she believed could heal the wounds of war and foster a sense of identity. She invited poets and musicians to the royal court, encouraging them to compose works that celebrated the lives of ordinary people alongside the achievements of the dynasty. This recognition of the common folk in art and literature was unprecedented, and it endeared the empress to her subjects, who saw her as a ruler who truly valued their contributions. Education was another area where the empress made significant strides. She believed that knowledge was the key to empowerment and sought to make it accessible to all, regardless of their social standing. She established schools in villages and towns, where children could learn not only practical skills like farming and craftsmanship, but also the moral teachings of the ancient sages. She personally visited these schools, speaking to students and teachers, and her presence inspired communities to prioritize education. One notable school in the northern provinces became famous for its innovative curriculum, which combined traditional teachings with practical lessons on governance and public service. This school, founded under the empress' patronage, produced some of the most capable administrators and leaders of the Shang Dynasty. Many of these individuals later credited their success to the empress' vision and dedication to education. Beyond her public initiatives, the empress was known for her personal acts of kindness. She often visited the sick and the elderly, bringing medicine and comfort to those in need. During times of crisis, such as floods or epidemics, she personally coordinated relief efforts, ensuring that aid reached even the most remote corners of the kingdom. Her presence in these moments of hardship became a source of solace for the people, who saw her as a protector and caregiver. Despite her deep involvement with the people, the empress never lost sight of the importance of balancing compassion with justice. She was firm in her belief that fairness required accountability and that mercy must be tempered with wisdom. When disputes arose, she would often mediate personally, her reputation for impartiality making her judgments widely respected. In one famous case, she resolved a conflict between two villages over water rights, crafting a solution that ensured equitable access while preserving the region's fragile ecosystem. As the Shang Dynasty grew more prosperous, the empress turned her attention to fostering innovation and progress. She encouraged inventors and scholars to present their ideas at the royal court, offering patronage for projects that could benefit the kingdom. One such project, a new method for casting bronze tools, revolutionized agriculture and craftsmanship, further strengthening the kingdom's economy. The empress' support for such advancements reflected her forward-thinking approach and her desire to create a legacy that would endure. Her efforts to bridge the gap between the throne and the people were not without challenges. Some members of the court, particularly those from the old nobility, viewed her initiatives with skepticism, fearing that they undermined their traditional privileges. The empress addressed these concerns with her characteristic diplomacy, emphasizing that the strength of the dynasty depended on the well-being of all its subjects. Over time, even her critics came to recognize the wisdom of her approach. As the stability and prosperity of the Shang Dynasty became evident, the bond between the empress and the people became a defining feature of her reign. She was not merely a figurehead but an active and compassionate leader, whose presence could be felt in every corner of the kingdom. Her efforts to improve the lives of ordinary citizens earned her the title Mother of the People, a name that reflected the deep affection and respect she inspired. Under her guidance, the Shang Dynasty flourished, its cities bustling with activity and its fields yielding abundant harvests. The people, once weary from years of war and oppression, began to dream of a brighter future. The empress had given them not only the means to survive but also the hope to thrive. As she stood on the steps of the royal palace, overlooking the vibrant capital, the empress felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had dedicated her life to serving the people, and in their smiles and gratitude, she saw the fruits of her labor. Yet, she knew that the journey was far from over. The challenges of governance were ever present, and the responsibility of maintaining the mandate of heaven required constant vigilance. But the Empress faced the future with unwavering resolve, secure in the knowledge that the Shang Dynasty was stronger than ever, built not on fear or force, but on the enduring bond between its rulers and its people. As the Shang Dynasty flourished, the Empress turned her attention toward the future of the kingdom, focusing on ensuring that the values and vision she and Cheng Tang had cultivated would endure for generations. At the heart of this effort was the education and upbringing of their children. As the mother of the heirs to the throne, she understood that their legacy depended not only on the policies they implemented but also on the character and wisdom of those who would carry on their work. The royal family was blessed with several children, and the Empress approached her role as a mother with the same dedication and thoughtfulness that she brought to her governance. She saw her children not merely as future rulers but as stewards of the dynasty's ideals. To her, their upbringing was a sacred duty, one that would determine whether the Shang Dynasty would continue to thrive or falter under the weight of its responsibilities. From a young age, the Empress instilled in her children the values of compassion, justice, and humility. She believed that a ruler must understand the lives of their subjects to govern effectively, and she encouraged her children to spend time among the people. Disguised in simple clothing, they visited markets, farms, and villages, observing the daily struggles and triumphs of those they would one day rule. These experiences left a lasting impression on the children, fostering a deep sense of empathy and responsibility. Education was central to the Empress' vision for her children's development. She personally selected their tutors, ensuring that they were not only knowledgeable but also virtuous and wise. The curriculum was rigorous, encompassing philosophy, history, governance, and the teachings of ancient sages. The Empress herself often participated in their lessons, using stories and parables to convey complex ideas. She was particularly fond of a saying attributed to a legendary sage: "The ruler's heart is like the sun. When it shines with virtue, it nourishes all who live under its light." Beyond academics, the Empress emphasized the importance of physical and martial training. She believed that a ruler must be strong in both body and mind to lead effectively. Under her guidance, the children learned archery, horseback riding, and swordsmanship, skills that not only prepared them for the responsibilities of leadership but also instilled discipline and resilience. Among her children, the Empress had a special bond with the eldest son, the Crown Prince, who was destined to inherit the throne. He was a bright and inquisitive boy, eager to learn and eager to prove himself worthy of his lineage. The Empress saw in him both great potential and the weight of expectation, and she worked tirelessly to prepare him for the challenges ahead. She often spoke to him about the responsibilities of leadership, reminding him that the mandate of heaven was not a right but a trust. "The crown you will wear is heavy," she told him one evening as they walked through the palace gardens. "It is not adorned with gold and jewels, but with the hopes and struggles of your people. If you rule with virtue, they will lift you up. If you falter, they will bear the weight of your failures." The Empress' influence extended beyond her immediate family. She understood that a strong kingdom required capable and virtuous leaders at all levels, and she took a personal interest in mentoring the children of nobles and officials. She established a royal academy where the sons and daughters of the court could study alongside her own children, fostering a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose. This academy became a breeding ground for the future leaders of the Shang Dynasty, many of whom credited the Empress with shaping their character and ideals. One of the Empress' most remarkable achievements during this period was her ability to navigate the complexities of court politics. The court was a place of ambition and intrigue, where rival factions vied for influence and power. The Empress, however, was a master of diplomacy, using her wisdom and charisma to maintain harmony. She encouraged cooperation among the nobles, emphasizing that their loyalty to the dynasty was paramount. Through her efforts, the court became a more stable and unified institution, one that reflected the values of the Shang Dynasty. despite her many responsibilities. The Empress never lost sight of the personal bonds that held the royal family together. She cherished the moments she spent with her children, whether it was telling them stories by the fire, celebrating their achievements, or comforting them in times of doubt. These moments of warmth and intimacy were a testament to her belief that the strength of a family was the foundation of a strong kingdom. As the children grew older, they began to take on more responsibilities, gradually assuming roles in the governance of the kingdom. The crown prince, under the watchful eye of his mother and father, began to participate in council meetings and oversee regional affairs. The Empress guided him with patience and wisdom, allowing him to make mistakes but ensuring that he learned from them. Leadership is a journey, she told him after one such lesson. Every misstep is an opportunity to grow, as long as you have the courage to face it with humility. The Empress' dedication to her children and to the future of the Shang Dynasty did not go unnoticed. The people admired her as both a ruler and a mother, and her example inspired countless families across the kingdom. Songs and stories celebrated her wisdom and compassion, and she became a symbol of the values that the Shang Dynasty sought to uphold. Her legacy as a mother extended far beyond her own children. Through her mentorship and guidance, she nurtured a generation of leaders who shared her vision of a just and prosperous kingdom. These leaders, shaped by her teachings, would go on to play pivotal roles in the continued success of the Shang Dynasty. As the Empress reflected on her role in shaping the future, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had devoted her life to building a kingdom that honored the principles of virtue and justice, and she saw those principles taking root in the hearts and minds of the next generation. Her children, her protégés, and her people were her legacy, a living testament to her unwavering belief in the power of compassion and wisdom. Yet, she knew that the work of a ruler and a mother was never truly done. Challenges would continue to arise, and the mandate of heaven required constant vigilance. But the Empress faced the future with confidence, knowing that she had laid a foundation strong enough to withstand the tests of time. As the sun set over the Shang capital, she looked out over the bustling city and whispered a quiet prayer, her heart filled with hope for the generations to come. As the Shang Dynasty grew stronger and more prosperous, the challenges of governance shifted from external threats to internal intrigues. The court, once united in its purpose to overthrow the corrupt Xia dynasty, became a stage for political ambition and rivalries. The Empress, whose wisdom had guided the kingdom through its formative years, now found herself navigating the delicate and often treacherous dynamics of court politics. The Shang court was composed of a diverse assembly of nobles, military leaders, and advisors, each with their own ambitions and loyalties. While many remained steadfast in their dedication to the dynasty, others sought to exploit their positions for personal gain. The Empress recognized that such ambitions, if left unchecked, could undermine the stability of the kingdom. She took it upon herself to ensure that the court remained a place of cooperation and integrity. One of the most significant challenges arose from a faction of nobles who resented the reforms that had redistributed power away from the aristocracy and toward regional leaders and commoners. These nobles, many of whom traced their lineage back to the Xia era, viewed the Empress' policies as a threat to their traditional privileges. They began to conspire in secret, spreading rumors and sowing discord within the court. The Empress, ever vigilant, was quick to recognize the signs of dissent. Through her network of informants, she learned of secret meetings and clandestine alliances. Rather than confronting the conspirators directly, she chose a more subtle approach. She began by fostering a sense of unity among the loyal members of the court, emphasizing the shared vision and values that had brought them together. She organized banquets, ceremonies, and public works projects that celebrated the achievements of the dynasty, reminding the court of their collective purpose. At the same time, the Empress worked to isolate the conspirators. She appointed trusted allies to key positions, ensuring that the levers of power remained firmly in the hands of those loyal to the dynasty. She also used her influence to counter the rumors and misinformation being spread by the dissenters. Through a combination of diplomacy and strategic action, she gradually dismantled the faction's network of support. One of the most dramatic moments in this struggle came during a meeting of the Royal Council. Prominent noble, emboldened by his allies, accused the Empress of overstepping her role and undermining the traditional order. The chamber fell silent as the noble's words hung in the air. The Empress, calm and composed, rose to address the assembly. "Tradition is not the foundation of a kingdom," she said, her voice steady and commanding. "Virtue is. The strength of the Shang Dynasty lies not in the privileges of the few but in the well-being of all its people. If we abandon the principles of justice and compassion that brought us here, we betray not only our ancestors but also the generations to come." Her words struck a chord, and the council erupted in applause. The noble, realizing that he had overplayed his hand, withdrew his accusations and retreated into obscurity. The Empress' decisive response not only reaffirmed her authority but also strengthened the unity of the court. Despite her success in quelling dissent, the Empress knew that intrigue was an inevitable part of governance. She understood that ambition could not be eradicated, only managed. To this end, she established a system of checks and balances within the court, ensuring that no individual or faction could amass excessive power. She also instituted regular audits of the kingdom's finances and administration, rooting out corruption and promoting transparency. The Empress' approach to court politics was not limited to conflict resolution. She believed that the court should be a place of innovation and progress, and she encouraged open debate and the exchange of ideas. She often invited scholars, philosophers, and inventors to present their work before the court, fostering a culture of intellectual curiosity and collaboration. This openness not only enriched the kingdom but also provided a constructive outlet for the ambitions of its leaders. Her ability to balance firmness with diplomacy earned her the respect of even her critics. Over time, the court became a more stable and harmonious institution, one that reflected the values of the Shang Dynasty. The Empress' influence extended beyond the palace walls, as her reforms and policies shaped the governance of the entire kingdom. One of her most significant achievements during this period was the creation of the Council of Harmony, an advisory body composed of representatives from all regions of the kingdom. This council served as a bridge between the central government and the provinces, ensuring that the voices of the people were heard. The Empress presided over the council's meetings, guiding its discussions and mediating disputes. The council became a model of participatory governance, a testament to the Empress' vision of a unified and inclusive kingdom. Despite her successes, the Empress remained ever watchful. She knew that the stability of the court and the kingdom depended on her continued vigilance. She worked tirelessly to maintain the balance of power, ensuring that ambition was channeled toward the greater good rather than personal gain. As the years passed, the Empress' reputation as a wise and just leader grew. Her ability to navigate the complexities of court politics without compromising her principles became a source of inspiration for the kingdom. She was not merely a ruler but a symbol of the values that the Shang Dynasty sought to uphold. Through her efforts, the Empress ensured that the court became a pillar of strength for the Shang Dynasty. By fostering unity, promoting integrity, and encouraging innovation, she laid the groundwork for a legacy that would endure for generations. Her influence was felt not only in the halls of the palace but throughout the kingdom. As the people looked to her as a beacon of hope and virtue, the Empress had faced the intrigues of the court with wisdom and grace, emerging not only victorious but stronger for it. She had proven that leadership was not about wielding power but about earning trust and respect. Her legacy was one of resilience and vision, a reminder that even in the face of ambition and discord, the values of justice and compassion could prevail. The Shang Dynasty had entered a golden age, its lands prosperous and its people unified under the benevolent rule of Cheng Tang and the Empress. Yet, even in the glow of success, The inevitable passage of time cast its shadow. Cheng Tang, once a vigorous leader who had rallied the kingdom against the Xia, began to show signs of age. His hair, once dark and vibrant, had turned silver, and his steps grew slower, while his mind remained sharp. The weight of decades of leadership took its toll on his health. The Empress, ever his steadfast partner, was acutely aware of the changes in her husband, though she had always shouldered a significant part of the kingdom's governance. She began to take on even greater responsibilities, ensuring a seamless continuation of leadership as Tang's energy waned. Their partnership, forged in the crucible of rebellion, remained unshakable. In their private moments, they would reflect on the journey they had undertaken together, finding solace in the enduring bond that had guided them through triumphs and trials. Tang, despite his declining health, continued to play an active role in governance. He presided over council meetings, consulted with military leaders, and reviewed policies. However, he increasingly relied on the Empress to handle the day-to-day affairs of the kingdom. Her wisdom, diplomacy, and unwavering commitment to justice had long been the backbone of their reign, and she now stepped into an even more prominent role, ensuring that the dynasty's stability remained unthreatened. The question of succession began to loom large over the court. The crown prince, who had been groomed for leadership since childhood, was ready to assume the mantle of kingship. But the transition of power was a delicate matter. The Empress understood that any hint of instability could invite dissent or unrest. She worked closely with Tang to prepare for the transition, guiding the crown prince through the intricacies of governance and ensuring that the court remained unified. Tang's greatest concern was not the readiness of his son, but the preservation of the values that had defined their rule. He feared that the lessons of the past, the tyranny of the Xia and the sacrifices of the rebellion, might be forgotten in the comfort of prosperity. The mandate of heaven is not eternal, he told the Empress during one of their quiet conversations. It must be earned with each generation. I worry that in peace, we may lose the vigilance that keeps us virtuous. The Empress, as always, offered reassurance. The roots we have planted are strong, she said. Our son has been raised with the values we hold dear, and the people have seen the fruits of just leadership. What we have built will endure, not because of fear, but because it is right. As Tang's health continued to decline, the Empress organized a series of ceremonies and public works to honor his legacy. These included the construction of a grand temple dedicated to the ancestors, a place where the people could pay homage to those who had shaped their history. The temple became a symbol of the dynasty's continuity, reminding all who visited of the virtues that underpinned their kingdom. Despite his physical frailty, Tang insisted on participating in these ceremonies, viewing them as a final opportunity to reaffirm his commitment to the people. The Empress stood by his side during these events, her presence a source of strength and stability. The people, seeing their king and queen together, were reminded of the partnership that had guided the Shang Dynasty through its most challenging times. The transition of power began in earnest as Tang formally passed many of his responsibilities to the crown prince. The Empress played a pivotal role in this process, serving as both a mentor and a bridge between the old and new generations of leadership. She ensured that the court accepted the crown prince's authority and that the kingdom's governance continued without disruption. Tang's final days were spent in the royal palace, surrounded by his family and closest advisors. The Empress was a constant presence, attending to his needs and offering him comfort. Their conversations during this time were deeply personal, reflecting on their shared journey and the legacy they had built. Tang expressed his gratitude for her unwavering support and acknowledged the profound influence she had had on his reign. "You have been the heart of this kingdom," he told her. "Without your wisdom, your strength, and your love, none of this would have been possible." When Cheng Tang passed away, the kingdom mourned deeply. His death marked the end of an era, but the foundations he and the Empress had laid ensured that the Shang Dynasty remained strong. The Empress, though grieving the loss of her partner, faced this new chapter with resolve. She understood that her role as a leader and a symbol of continuity was more important than ever. The Empress organized a grand state funeral for Tang, an event that brought together people from all corners of the kingdom. Nobles and commoners alike gathered to pay their respects. Their grief mingled with gratitude for the life and legacy of their king. The ceremony, held in the newly constructed Temple of Ancestors, was both solemn and inspiring, a reminder of the values that had guided Tang's reign. In the weeks and months that followed, the Empress worked tirelessly to support the new king, her son. She continued to serve as an advisor, offering her wisdom and experience to guide him through the challenges of leadership. Her presence in the court was a stabilizing force, ensuring that the transition of power was smooth and that the kingdom remained united. Though her role as queen had changed, the Empress remained deeply involved in the life of the kingdom. She continued her efforts to improve the lives of the people, oversee governance, and preserve the legacy of her late husband. Her strength and resilience inspired the court and the people, reaffirming their faith in the Shang Dynasty. The sunset of Cheng Tang's life marked the passing of a great leader, but it also highlighted the enduring partnership that had defined the Shang Dynasty's success. The Empress, as both a ruler and a mother, carried forward the values they had shared, ensuring that their vision of a just and prosperous kingdom would endure for generations to come. With the passing of Cheng Tang, the Shang Dynasty stood at a pivotal juncture. The transition of power from one ruler to the next was always a test of a dynasty's strength. But thanks to the tireless efforts of the Empress, the foundation laid by Tang remained solid. Her wisdom, leadership, and unwavering commitment to the principles of justice and virtue ensured that the Shang Dynasty continued to thrive under the rule of her son. The new king, the crown prince, now King Wu, took to the throne with a heavy heart but a determined spirit. He had been prepared for this role his entire life, groomed by both his father and mother to understand the complexities of governance. Yet, the absence of Cheng Tang weighed on him, as did the immense responsibility of living up to his father's legacy. The Empress, though grieving, remained steadfast in her support, serving as a mentor and guide during the early days of his reign. The first major challenge of King Wu's rule came in the form of dissent from several regional governors who viewed the transition as an opportunity to assert greater autonomy. These governors, though loyal to the dynasty during Tang's time, began to question the authority of the new king. The Empress, recognizing the potential danger of such dissent, took swift and decisive action. Through a combination of diplomacy and strategic maneuvering, she quelled the unrest before it could escalate. She personally traveled to meet with the dissenting governors, reminding them of their shared history and the sacrifices that had been made to establish the Shang Dynasty. Her words carried the weight of both experience and moral authority, and her presence reassured the governors that the dynasty remained strong. Many of them renewed their oaths of loyalty, swayed not by coercion but by the Empress' ability to inspire trust and unity. At the same time, the Empress worked closely with King Wu to establish his own legitimacy. She encouraged him to take bold actions that demonstrated his leadership, such as implementing reforms that addressed the needs of the people and strengthening the kingdom's infrastructure. Under her guidance, Wu launched a series of public works projects, including the construction of new roads and granaries, which not only improved the kingdom's economy but also solidified his reputation as a capable and compassionate ruler. The Empress also played a pivotal role in reshaping the court to align with the new era. She recognized that while continuity was important, the court needed fresh perspectives to adapt to the changing times. She encouraged Wu to appoint young and innovative advisors, many of whom had been educated in the royal academy she had established. These advisors brought new ideas and energy to the court, ensuring that the Shang Dynasty remained forward-thinking and dynamic. One of the Empress' most significant contributions during this period was her work on the codification of laws. While Cheng Tang had laid the groundwork for a just legal system, the Empress saw the need for a more comprehensive and unified code that could be applied consistently across the kingdom. She oversaw the drafting of this code, working with legal scholars and officials to ensure that it reflected the values of fairness and compassion that had defined the dynasty's rule. The resulting legal code became a cornerstone of the Shang Dynasty's governance, providing a framework for justice that endured for centuries. As the years passed, the Shang Dynasty continued to flourish under King Wu's reign, guided by the Empress' steady hand. The kingdom's borders expanded through diplomacy and trade, and its cities became centers of culture and innovation. The Empress, though no longer the queen, remained a revered figure in the court and among the people. She was often consulted on matters of governance and diplomacy, her insights proving invaluable in navigating the challenges of leadership. The Empress' influence extended beyond governance. She continued her efforts to improve the lives of the people, focusing on education, agriculture, and the arts. She supported the establishment of new schools and encouraged the creation of public spaces where communities could gather and celebrate their shared heritage. Her vision of a kingdom united by shared values and mutual respect became a reality, shaping the identity of the Shang Dynasty for generations to come. Her role as a grandmother added another dimension to her legacy. She took an active interest in the upbringing of her grandchildren, instilling in them the same values of compassion and justice that she had taught her own children. She saw in them the future of the dynasty and worked tirelessly to ensure that they were prepared to carry forward the principles that had guided her life. Despite her many responsibilities, the Empress found moments of reflection in the quiet of the ancestral temple she and Cheng Tang had built there. Surrounded by the symbols of their shared journey, she often prayed for the continued prosperity of the kingdom and the wisdom of its leaders. These moments of solitude reminded her of the sacrifices they had made and the enduring legacy they had created together. As the Empress grew older, her presence in the court became less frequent, but her influence remained strong. Her legacy was evident in the policies that governed the kingdom, the stability of the court, and the loyalty of the people. She had secured the Shang Dynasty's place in history, ensuring that it would endure long after she was gone. When the Empress passed away, the kingdom mourned deeply. Her funeral, like Cheng Tang's, was a grand and solemn event, attended by nobles and commoners from across the land. She was laid to rest beside her husband in the ancestral temple, her life celebrated as one of unparalleled wisdom, compassion, and leadership. The Shang Dynasty continued to thrive, its foundations strengthened by the Empress' tireless efforts. Her legacy lived on in the values she had instilled, the institutions she had built, and the people she had inspired. She had secured not only the dynasty's survival but also its soul, leaving behind a kingdom that embodied the principles of justice, virtue, and unity. The Empress' passing marked the end of an extraordinary era in the Shang Dynasty, yet her spirit continued to permeate the kingdom she had devoted her life to building. Her legacy was not merely etched in stone monuments or grand temples, but lived on in the hearts of the people and the values that defined the Shang Dynasty. King Wu, deeply affected by the loss of his mother, decreed a year of mourning throughout the kingdom. During this time, no festivals or celebrations were held, and the court wore white, the color of mourning. Across the land, villages and cities alike built shrines and altars in her honor, where people gathered to pay their respects and recount stories of her wisdom and compassion. She was remembered not only as a queen and mother, but as a symbol of virtue and justice. In the years following her death, the dynasty she had helped forge continued to flourish. The legal code she had overseen became a cornerstone of governance, ensuring fairness and stability throughout the land. The Council of Harmony, which she had championed, evolved into an enduring institution that upheld the voices of the provinces and the people. Her educational reforms bore fruit in the form of scholars, administrators, and leaders who carried forward her vision of a unified and virtuous kingdom. The Empress' grandchildren, raised with her teachings and inspired by her example, became stewards of the dynasty's legacy. They often spoke of her lessons in their own leadership, referencing the stories and wisdom she had imparted to guide their decisions. Her emphasis on humility and compassion shaped not only their rule but also the culture of the dynasty, fostering a society that valued service and integrity. Her influence extended far beyond the royal family. Among the common people, the empress was venerated as a protector and a beacon of hope. Folk tales and songs about her life spread throughout the kingdom, celebrating her bravery, wisdom, and kindness. Farmers recounted how she had ensured their survival during times of famine, while artisans spoke of the opportunities she had created for their crafts to thrive. For generations, her name was invoked in prayers and rituals, a reminder of the virtues that bound the kingdom together. One of the most enduring tributes to the empress was the completion of a grand mausoleum commissioned by King Wu, built on a hill overlooking the capital. The mausoleum became a place of pilgrimage for those who sought to honor her memory. Its walls were adorned with carvings depicting scenes from her life, her early days as a young bride forging alliances, her role in the rebellion against the Xia, her contributions to governance, and her tireless efforts to improve the lives of the people. At the center of the mausoleum stood a statue of the empress, her gaze serene and her hands outstretched as if to embrace her people. As the years turned into decades, the empress' legacy became inseparable from the identity of the Shang Dynasty. Her life was studied by scholars, her policies emulated by rulers, and her wisdom preserved in the teachings of sages. The mandate of heaven, which she and Cheng Tang had worked so hard to secure, remained the guiding principle of the dynasty, a testament to their shared vision of a just and virtuous kingdom. Even as the Shang Dynasty eventually gave way to the tides of history, the empress story endured. She was remembered not only as a historical figure but as an ideal, a symbol of what leadership could and should be. Her life inspired generations of leaders, not just in China but across the world, as her story spread through the annals of time. In the final years of the dynasty, as the last Shang rulers faced the challenges of a changing world, they often turned to the lessons of the past for guidance. They found strength in the example of the empress, whose unwavering commitment to justice, compassion, and unity had carried the dynasty through its most turbulent times. Her name became a rallying cry for those who sought to uphold the values she had embodied, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, virtue could prevail. The empress' legacy was eternal, a shining light that continued to guide the hearts and minds of those who followed in her footsteps. Her life was a testament to the power of wisdom, compassion, and unwavering resolve, a legacy that would never be forgotten. And so, the story of the Empress of Cheng Tang came to a close, not as an ending but as a beginning. Her life had shaped a dynasty, her vision had inspired a people, and her legacy had transcended the bounds of time. She remained, forever, the heart of the Shang Dynasty and the embodiment of its highest ideals.